You don't have your whole life ahead of you. What you have is 24 hours that keeps looping. And you need to master using that skill because this is what ultimately is going to take you from where you are right now to enable you to create the lifestyle that you want, whatever it is. Whether it's building the physique, growing the business, improving the relationships, all of these things, they need to happen on a daily basis. Because if you really think about it, deep down, all you have to do is engineer the perfect day based on your long-term goals. Then you have to extract daily compounding habits that over time work towards your goals. And to make all of this more accessible so that you can craft a clear structure for yourself, I've built a roadmap, a graphic representation that I don't think I've ever seen anywhere else. But first, we need to talk about your definition of an ideal lifestyle. And the first thing that you need to ask yourself is, what's the vision that you have? What's the big win in your head? And here I'm not talking about a one-time purchase of life. I'm talking about a typical Tuesday. And honestly, at first you need to think twice about it. It's not as intuitive as you might think because the problem is that society has projected an idea of success that might not align with what you truly want your life to be like. So you really need to dig deeper than the first thought that pops into your head. Don't let the superficial fool you because the last thing that you want is to build a day that is aimed at superficial goals. Because in that case, you'll be wasting a lot of time. What you need to find first is a meaningful and personal reason to engage into something. For example, when I started going to the gym, I wanted to build muscle, but it's an empty goal. It's what 99% of people want. It's impersonal and it won't be sustainable. Instead, what you want to look for is an emotional reason, an emotional link to do something and to engage, because ultimately that's what's going to get you to your goals and not the I want to get rich. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about real business. Biggest challenge people face when starting anything really is time management. They don't have enough time. They don't think they can do it. Everyone feels like they're lacking time, and yet most people don't actually know where their time goes. And here's a perspective about time. Think of it as a currency, just like money, more valuable than money actually. Imagine that you have 24 coins every day, and at midnight, magical fairy replenishes your supply with hopefully another 24 coins until one day the fairy chooses not to, and then that's it, you're done. The thing is that you only have so many coins, so might as well use them as wisely as possible and betting on compounding effect to create the life that you want. Think of it as a game really, because it's what it is, the game of life. And in real life, everyone has what I call non-negotiable. So these are the daily tasks that you must engage into. So for most people, their life includes 5 major categories. So this is basically the roadmap that we're going to use in order to craft and reverse engineer the ideal day for you to create, okay? So here you have your non-negotiables. You have 5 categories for it. And for most people, they're not going to have so much power over it at first. But the thing is that you want to get into phase 1 because you want to estimate the time that you actually have in your day. So you come up here, and for each category, you're going to estimate the time that it takes in your day, because the first thing that you will want to do is to actually calculate your day and time balance, which is the number of hours remaining at the end of the day when you're done with everything that you have to do. For example, here, sleep. So I broke down that it took me 8 hours today. Then you have, for most people, work, which is going to be the second most prevalent source of time. So sleep, work, eating or food preparation, personal hygiene and health, and transportation. Because my audience is actually made out of 97, I believe, or 93% men, I just thought that personal hygiene, a good 30 minutes would be an accurate indicator. And what you want to do is to be able to see how much time you have left after you've engaged in all the activities that are making your day. This is the first phase, time estimation. And when you have all the information here, only stick to that first part for now. You're going to put out the equation, which is a very complicated word to say. You just addition all the non-negotiables and you subtract it to 24, which is for 24 hours. And just by doing that, you'll gain awareness and clarity simply by outlining the non-negotiables that are making your day. No, that's not it. We need to know how much time you are spending on time eaters. So these are not necessary activities, but you're still allocating a lot of time towards those activities. Here you come down and there you can see your time eaters right here. These activities are going to be taking and consuming a lot of your time. So here's social media, for example, 2 hours, and video games for 2 hours. Then when you have all of this, so your first phase done, you can basically know exactly how much time is remaining in your day. So you take back your results from the first step, and then you subtract from that all the time that your time eaters are consuming. Now you know exactly how much time you have left. The first problem that you might encounter now is that you only have left a couple minutes. You have two options here. Either you make the non-negotiables more efficient. For instance, what you could do is meal prep once a week if you don't want to waste any more time prepping food. You can get to work earlier to avoid traffic if transportation is the main problem in your life right now. You have to find solutions for yourself. Think about the non-negotiable that you want to optimize first. Or the second thing, which is easier but that most people won't do, is to cut down time on time eaters. And for that, you have an incredibly free and valuable tool that's on your phone. It's built in. I personally use it all the time, which is a timer. So next time that you want to play video games, for example, right before starting, you want to condition yourself to set a timer, and you want to put like real loud alarm, like the nastiest alarm that you can put out. And when it rings, that's a cue for your brain, for you first, and then for your brain to move on to the other activity. Now, if you condition yourself doing this frequently throughout your day, you'll actually start to build somewhat automatic behavioral response to the timer. Like, it looks ridiculous and childish, but learning how to use a timer like this is by far the single most effective thing I've discovered to improve my productivity. Now that phase one is done, time estimation, let's go back. This is phase two. The idea is that your ideal day is the repetition of a collection of a few habits that are designed to compound. So compounding effect again. Compounding effect again. Compounding effect. That's the most important thing that you need to take away from this. This is your ideal day, okay? You still have 5 categories that are making this ideal day. If you're starting your self-improvement journey, this is the exact order you need to work on them. It has to start with health. Why? Because nothing's happening if you're not healthy. So the first thing that you want to do, and with your time that's remaining, the time that you've freed for yourself, you want to take care of your health. This is the first priority, and I cannot emphasize this enough. It will be overwhelming doing all of this. So if you're someone that's anxious or stressed, you should come back to this video often. But for today, you should just stick with the first one. Don't try to write down all of those different categories for now, because it will be a struggle, trust me. That being said, the main thing that you want to focus on is actually to come down to the second, third, the fourth branch, and to come here and to see that the objective is to grow YouTube to 10K subscribers. So you need to subscribe, please. So health category. What you need is a clear, actionable habit that you can implement in your lifestyle, right? So you come here, and the first step is to write down the long-term vision that you have for yourself. So that's the thing I was talking to you about in the introduction. So for example, let's come here and let's say that my objective is to build muscle, which is exactly what I'm doing now. And the key here will be to get from long-term to medium-term will be education, because that's ultimately what's going to give you all the information that you need in order to enable you to go from this long-term vision to this, which is more precise, even if it's not daily actionable habit. So this is where most people stop, right here, medium term, okay? This is the goal that most people set themselves. I want to go to the gym. Yes, okay, you want to go to the gym, but that doesn't make it actionable. Like, you don't know how to implement this in your lifestyle. And at this point in the medium term level, you don't have any clarity. You can postpone it, you can change the goal, you don't have anything to show it for. But now, what about making your goal as clearly defined and measurable as possible. Wouldn't that be so much nicer and so much easier? Well, that is, and that's why we're going to come here and go from medium term to daily actionable habit. You can see that going to the gym has become a 45-minute workout. Daily actionable habit, okay? Daily because you want to make this as frequent as possible, and actionable because you need to know exactly what you're going to do. These 4 habits, for example, are just for this category. Now, you're going to take one habit at a time. If you want to go from the phase of this second phase, engineering the ideal day, to the extraction and implementation in your lifestyle, you need to go with one habit at a time. That's like the golden rule, okay? Otherwise, you're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to be anxious, and then you're going to quit in 2 weeks. And I see that all the time, people start the gym. You adapt the time of your workout to the remaining time that you had here, okay? Now, if I have 1.5 remaining hours, then again, I take into account the time that it's going to take me to go to the gym and back, and the workout itself, okay? So an hour and a half, I have more than enough time to do a 45-minute workout. And if you don't know how to start your gym process, first thing in the bio, you're going to have absolutely everything you need in first step, which is completely free for now. When you have the habit that you've chosen to implement, you're going to go from phase 2 to phase 3, which is extracting and implementing. The 5 steps of habit implementation, okay? So first you start off, so keep in mind that we're gonna stick with the 45-minute workout. First, you start off with planning, which is exactly what you're doing right now. You're planning your habit, you're not engaging yet. This is where most people are. Most people are stuck into the planning phase. So they plan all the time, especially overthinkers, because it never leaves their mind, as it's just like too complicated to plan. And you have to think about this. So in order to implement a habit in your lifestyle, especially habits that are going to be complex, such as learning skills for business, or having a complete fitness routine, there's no way that you're going to be able to plan out in your head all of the steps that you need to engage in. It's a good thing to plan out your habit. It's another thing to overthink it. Then the second level is forcing. This is basically your first month. So you'll have to force yourself to physically engage, because your habit is going to be something that's, for most people, is completely new. For example, working out means that if you've never been working out, the hardest thing by far is to get over the first month. This is the hardest part, okay? This is also where most people stop. They have their first interaction with what's called friction. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. If you complete that phase, you go down to encoding, the first 3 months. It's when the real work is happening in your mind. So that's when your brain starts to rewire connections and when friction decreases. That being said, you still have to push yourself to engage. That is why consistency, you see people talking about discipline and consistency. That is why it's so important. You have to engage consistently enough so that you allow your brain to do the work and to make it a habit eventually. And then you have solidification. Not a lot of people make it through this stage. Never mind this one. Then 6 months, it's when you start to get automatic behaviors happening and friction is still present, but it doesn't feel like you have to break your leg to go to the gym. And if you make it to crystallization, which you will, it's 6 months and over. This is when the habit is anchored and an inherent part of your lifestyle. This is basically when it's an acquired behavior, and it starts to, so it goes into the next phase, which is identity shift. We're not going to talk about this right now, but this will be the subject of another video, because this is what you want. Once you're at this crystallization stage, then and only then you can come back to phase 2, and you can come back to your 5 categories, and you still are in health at this point, and then you come back to the caloric surplus, and you be in a caloric surplus, and you do that again, one habit at a time. And then you stack up your habits once they're crystallized. So every time that you have a habit that's crystallized, so at first it's going to take you way more time to crystallize one habit. Don't worry, you're going to be able to reduce the time for crystallization as you learn how to do it and as you build self-discipline. But if it's your first time doing this, really recommend doing this for 6 months. Now, coming back to what's called friction. Friction is your biggest enemy, and it's the thing that you need to be aware of when you're starting to implement a new habit. Friction is the reason why most of the people watching this video won't be able to go up until crystallization of the habit. The reason why most people can't work out consistently is because of this. So this is very important. This is your brain. Friction is going to be the pulling force that's preventing you from engaging into something new. When you've been engaging in something consistently, so let's take the example of social media. You've been engaging consistently in social media, which is bad habit or good habit, doesn't matter because we're talking about your brain here. Brain doesn't do the difference between good and bad though. The law of your brain is when neurons fire together, they wire together, which in neuroscience means that when you do something repeatedly, it starts to get automatic. So think about, so driving is the best example. The first time that you've ever drove a car, it was really hard and you were overstimulated about everything. So the road, the people, the other cars, the sound. But as you engaged repeatedly, you've noticed that as time passes, it becomes automatic. So you're a robot, you don't even have to pay attention to the road anymore. You're just like fully automatic. That's scary, but that's also something that you can learn and use in order to engage into the habits that you want. So you've been scrolling on social media for over 3 years now, consistently doing this 2-3 hours per day. You have built the strongest neural pathway when it comes to scrolling. So this is going to be scrolling. So this is the scrolling neural pathway. This is strong as hell because you've been engaging in this repeatedly for the past 3 years, okay? Now, our little habit that is just new and newborn, you've never actually engaged in this habit, okay? The thing is that your new habit, you're gonna have to fire new neurons that haven't been linked together yet, and that like it costs a lot of energy because your brain has to find a neural pathway that works in order to implement the 45-minute workout habit. So when you're starting, it's like you have these few neurons that are firing, but like your brain doesn't really know how to use them, and it's really hard because the thing is that this pathway doesn't cost any energy to your brain, just because the foundation of the neural pathway is so solid because you've been engaging repeatedly. Your brain has made the pathway so efficient, so much so that it doesn't cost you any energy to engage. But when you're starting something new, like going to the gym, your brain doesn't have any cue yet, so it doesn't know which neurons to use. So it's gonna start to try out different types of pathways and use different roads to get to the habit. But it's going to be very difficult to engage because at first you're just gonna have a very small neural pathway, and it's gonna take you a lot of energy to use this one because it's just like not efficient. So this is why people stop here, because they use a lot of energy just to get it going, and then they stop because it's too hard here. But obviously it's hard because your brain doesn't even know, like you've never conditioned your brain to do this activity, which is working out. And why consistency is working so well, and why you need to learn self-discipline is you got to get through this first phase of constructing this pathway for your brain to be able to grow it out and eventually to make it something sustainable like this. So this, it looks like this, as strong as your scrolling pathway when you're at the crystallization phase. And this is why you need to stick with it for months and months, is for your brain to be able to create this pathway and to make it as efficient as possible so that eventually it becomes automatic and there's no more friction because the pathway has been created. I know it's a lot. And once you got this concept right, you understand all of this. And once you understand how all of this works, you can basically build your day to make anything you want. I'm going to put down a link so you can access this roadmap, and it will be free. Bear in mind that this is supposed to be overwhelming and you'll have to come back to this video a few times as you progress in your journey, because every time that you come back to this, you're going to see and you're going to understand it differently, okay? That being said, right now you have the blueprint. So right now you can start. You need to make the change in your life because no one else is going to do it for you. But if you just trust the process, the power of the compounding effect, you'll be able to, in a matter of months, change your life for the better. And in a matter of years, you'll be able to create the lifestyle that you want. I hope this helps. Trust the process.